Okay, so what you're basically gonna do, spray, glove like you do. Then you button once. Okay. You can take it as a stand if you want. You're gonna do 5. Press it once, press it once. Yeah, when you're basically when you start, when you're done, mute it. Next person will do it. Okay, guys, we're like a minute away. So, good. And then there's going to be a camera that actually can go over here. That's your camera. It'll be this little video recording. It'll be showing you rather than.
Okay, I've given Shauna the go-ahead to start recording, so just again, a reminder that the audio is being picked up from that camera there, so please just be aware of that to keep your conversations to a minimum, please. Thanks.
Welcome to the regular meeting of council, September the 8th, 2020, 4:40 p.m. at Heritage North. Meeting called to order, and we'll start with a moment of silence. We'll have the approval of the agenda with some minor changes.
We have two additions tonight. Motion moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Eugene Ivanoff. Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council held on September 8th, 2020, beginning at 4:40 p.m. be approved as circulated to all members of council, with the addition of a delegation by Bernadine Kozak to be listed as 4.2 to speak to staff report 6.4, 26 Dixon, and the addition of a closed session item to be listed as 13.6, PL 200066, Lang versus Kirkland Lake status update.
All in favor? Motion carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Councillor Adams.
Item 13.2, Heritage North request to purchase member of Curling Club employee of Kirkland Lake.
Duly noted, thank you. Any other declarations? Yes. Councillor.
Heritage North, I have a rental facility.
Duly noted. Petitions and delegations, item 4.1. We have a delegation from Northern College. Welcome Dr. Audrey Penner, and Audrey, introduce your guest with you.
So my name is Jeff Molyneux, and on behalf of the Board of Governors of Northern College, I'd like to introduce Dr. Audrey Penner. Dr. Penner is the president and CEO of the Northern College. Audrey has joined Northern College in 2014 as the vice president of academic and student success. Audrey was previously at Holland College in Prince Edward Island, where she championed excellence in quality teaching and learning. Dr. Penner holds a PhD in education, a master's degree in education, and a bachelor's of science in dental hygiene. So on behalf of the Board of Governors, I'd just like to welcome Dr. Penner as our incoming president.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And thank you. I'm really, really pleased to be here to present to the council. We thought it was an opportunity for myself to come in a more formal capacity, although I have met with council before a few years ago. And this is an opportunity to talk about the fact that things are changing. The world is rapidly changing, and we wanted to give you a bird's eye view of what is happening at Northern College. So let's talk about that. We're here in a cornerstone of Northern College. From the very beginning, our Kirkland Lake campus is home to a number of world-renowned programs that continue to produce high-quality Northern College graduates. So I'm here, and no matter how many times I take a picture, it doesn't look any better than that, so I apologize. That's as good as it gets. And it even tries backing up quite a bit, and it still doesn't get any better. So this is what we have. But I also brought a little bit of a delegation with me tonight, and I'm going to trust they're going to stand when I call their name. We have Jeff Molyneux, who we just met with. He represents Magic on our Northern Board of College Governors, and Susan Hunter, who is the Director of Marketing, Communications, and External Relations. And situated here in the Kirkland Lake campus, we have Omar Duchesne, and Omar is the Manager of Community and Business Development. We also have Drew Enoy, who's our Kirkland Lake campus manager, and I believe very familiar with this facility. And then we also have David Rossi, and David is the chair of Alternate and Flexible Learning. And he's been with, he was with the college last year in a different capacity, but he's begun at the Kirkland Lake campus as of, I think, July the 6th, of his start date. So I wanted to make sure you knew who all was here. And I wanted to go back to our vision and mission. And we're guided by our mission and our vision routinely. And it's success for all through learning and partnerships, while excelling in quality, accessible programs, services, and partnerships for the benefit of northern communities, communities like Kirkland Lake, that form the bedrock of everything we do at Northern College. So the path forward, 2021 and beyond, and I recognize that COVID has created some significant challenges and we're changing the way we're thinking about a lot of things. But we're also seeing at Northern College, there are a lot of opportunities. There's increasing demand for skilled tradespeople and talent. There will be a skills shortage within the next few years. The digital path forward is a really good opportunity for Northern College, and we've been doing the distance learning process for a lot longer than many other colleges, and actually we're considered one of the experts in the college system in Ontario. Increasingly, we're having a global impact, and we do have to work local, but think global. We have a very dynamic and changing post-secondary landscape, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for colleges in terms of credentials and changing the credential dynamics. We're broadening our recruitment efforts. You will notice more international students at the Kirkland Lake campus, and you'll see that at all our campuses. And we're using data-driven decision-making processes, and there's opportunities for a lot more data too, which help us inform our decisions. COVID-19 has been a really unique challenge. We do see some declining domestic enrollment, but we aren't making any long-term decisions based on that. We consider that a blip on radar. We don't consider making any permanent changes based on that in terms of program offerings. But we also have a declining demographic population in the north, which you're well aware of, and it's declining at about 12% every 5 years. And that has a significant differential for what we do. The student needs are really evolving. The student of today, what they need for support is very different than the student of 10 and 15 years ago. But we are creating a truly unique and attractive post-secondary experience and a growing interest in micro-credentials, which I'd be happy to talk about if anyone has any questions, but that's a new area of credentialing that we're going to be getting into. So we've got a bit of data up here. The total student enrollment in 2015 was 165. In 2019, it was 186. So we're heading the right direction in terms of enrollment. In terms of total employee count, it was 79 in 2016. In 2020, it was 57. That has changed since then because we've added a few additional people to the complement. But if you look at our enrollment statistics, and I happen to love statistics, I know not everyone does, but if you'll see, we are starting to turn things around, and I think that's to a good deal. Thank you to the community group that's been helping us with the recruitment practices. So you'll see the full-time post-secondary enrollment 2015 to 2019, we took a dip, but we're starting to climb back up, and I think we're doing all the right things to keep that upward momentum going. And domestic enrollment as well, and we can talk more about domestic enrollment if you have any particular questions. So the domestic application history, we just put this in because there's quite a funnel for the time a person applies to college to actually come in through the door. And think of it like any sort of funnel. It's quite wide at the top and narrows down, and we track it all the way through as part of our strategic enrollment management strategy. So at a glance, you've had a chance to look at these. We've got several different programs in Kirkland Lake, and one of the things you'll see over the next few years is sort of a revitalization of some programs, new programs being introduced, and there's always a shift in demand. So sometimes you might reduce the capacity for a program, you might increase capacity. We have to adhere to market shifts. Notice a big increase in community services programming, and you will see that growing even bigger over the next couple of years. Welding engineering, and thank you, we have some of our welding faculty here tonight. They do a fabulous job. I mean, it's known all over the world for being a high quality program, and you will see that increasing as well due to demand. Our health sciences has been up and down a little bit, fluctuating by demand, and our engineering, tech and trades, you will see a slight increase in that as we increase our computer engineering program as well. So our academic plans and goals, this is what we wanted to talk a little bit about today. We have just launched our newest academic plan, and it talks about how we got here and where we're going. We think of it like a roadmap to future success, growth, and sustainability. But like any roadmap, it tells you how to get there, but it doesn't necessarily define everything you're going to do when you do get there. So our academic goals for 2021 and beyond, one of our key pillars of our academic plan is student success. And we're looking at very proactive approaches to that, having students identification of their needs in time, on time to meet student needs, and technology utilized where possible to expand our reach. So we're actually there as the student needs us, not after. That would be the ideal, is if we got there before they even knew that they needed help. Our academic goals as well, learning goals, we are going to incorporate universal design for learning, which many of our faculty already did do, but we're putting more resources into developing that skill so we have it well advanced in all our programs. And think of universal design for learning as like a very large net that covers the spectrum of what a learning need might be. So it is helpful for students that have learning disabilities, for students that have trouble hearing, for students that have trouble speaking. Any type of physical or mental challenge that impedes their learning, universal design for learning has a way to respond to that. And if we design all of our programs that way, we do ensure more student success. Our curriculum currently is well validated with a focus on experiential learning. We will be increasing the amount of experiential learning we have. Right now, probably 60% of our programs have a work integrated learning experience. We want to make that 100%. Developing credential recognition that meets industry and credential needs. And this is the part that I really want our communities to understand. Some of the programs that we're going to have to develop, we haven't even heard of yet. We don't even know that that job exists. For example, we just hired a social media expert. 15 years ago, there was no such career. Social media, there was no expert to manage your social media. That's the kind of thinking we need to integrate to stay in advance of what industry will need. And we want to deliver our programs within the context of our unique circumstances in the North. When we did our focus groups with our faculty and with our staff in our various campuses last year to decide this message came through loud and clear. We cannot forget we are in the North, and we have some very unique things to think about because we are in the North. So as we do this, we have principles for learning design. We're going to apply universal design for learning as a unique and proactive process. And we want our faculty to be able to recognize how to adapt it for distance, online, and modular delivery models. Now, I'd like to point out that we had written this academic plan before COVID, and it actually is tailor-made for our response to COVID. So I think it's that forward thinking that is going to be very helpful in the next few years. And we have to support an educational philosophy in all those principles, offer training and support for those, and create highly interactive learning environments and promote and sustain work integrated learning. So authentic and formative assessment strategies will be built into programming, and that's a very fancy way of saying maybe it's not always tests by pen and paper that are the best way to measure a student's learning and what they can do. Maybe some more actual doing of the things is the best way to measure what they can do. And define expansion of and support for flexible delivery models, and hence our chair to support this development. So we'll be focusing on educating the educators and the faculty in-house, and we want to establish a culture of progressive learning, a sustainable practice for program delivery, digital competency is supported and developed, consistent orientation strategies for all new faculty, and encourage mentorship and peer support. That's extremely important, so that they have people to go to help them build as they become more expert themselves. So what I've done is I've also put a copy of the academic plan around the table. If I didn't catch everybody, let me know. We have a few extra copies with us. We'd love for you to have it. We're happy to send you more if you need it. But the next really exciting part of our history at Northern College, looking forward and looking to the future, is moving to a new strategic plan. And we really put that into a very aggressive timeline. So part of tonight, what I'd like you to be thinking about is the strategic areas that you want to talk to us about. We would really like to hear from you. And it's our intent to request feedback from students, graduates, organizations, partners, employers, board members, councils, committees, individuals, and communities that Northern College impacts. So what we've done is we have put on our webpage, and what I will do tomorrow is I will send to your mayor, I'll send a little note and thank him for having me here, and I'll put the link on that he can share with everyone. And you can simply click on the homepage and you can go in, and it's a very user-friendly survey for you to add all of your information and give us feedback. So we're really excited to hear what the communities have to say. And on that note, we want to make sure we ask the right questions. So we'll use that feedback that will be gathered between now and October 1st. As I said, we're on a very, very aggressive timeline. You're encouraged to send it around too. So if you have 5 other people you want to send it to, feel free to send the link. That's what we want to have happen. The more people, the better. And we encourage participation and honest feedback. So we'll be tabulating that between October 1st and October 31st. and developing the starter framework with our directions and our strategic objectives for the next 5 years. So goal setting and measurable objectives will be key to that, and plus a reporting time frame so that we'll actually say, we will have this achieved by such and such a date. In the first year, we will do this, this, and this. So it's a new approach to strategic planning, and the way we're gathering data, this was partially dictated by COVID, but it's also a new rollout to a strategic plan in that we will certainly have something we'll be reporting to communities on. So on that note, I wanted to say thank you very much for having me, and I'm happy to answer. I know I don't have a lot of time on the agenda, but I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. And I apologize, I know I talk very, very fast. I do that when I'm passionate about things, and I'm very passionate about learners and learning. So hopefully that came through.
That's open to council members. Councillor White.
Definitely, we appreciate you coming for sure. As a graduate of Northern College, I can attest to the quality of education that somebody gets there. I did do the survey. I did follow the link. It's, yeah, absolutely easy, very user-friendly, and I appreciate being able to give you the feedback. You did mention the micro-credentialing.
Yes.
Could you just explain that?
I would be
briefly?
happy to.
Thank you.
We are under review right now for the credentials that exist in Ontario. And I think you're probably familiar, there's certificates, there's diplomas, there's baccalaureates, all of that good stuff. Those were all framed back probably, well, more than 50 years ago. That framework was created for colleges, and it's a tad out of date. So what we want to do is exemplify how colleges can do bits and pieces of learning, and that we can provide a credential to the person so they have that bit of learning, and it's acknowledged, and they can carry it with them. And then they can actually ladder it. And I like to describe it like Lego. You know how kids will play with Lego and they'll take this red piece and they'll put it together with this yellow piece? And they'll have something that looks very different. And another child will stick two other pieces together and have something that's very different. If you think of the micro-credential like that little Lego block, I think this is where education is going to go. Our role at the post-secondary level is to ensure that they're valid, that they're properly measured, and that they lead to something else. They don't want to be just an isolated little block that doesn't help you get someplace else. So we want to build our credentials. We want to work backwards from the credentials we do have and figure out how we can make micro-credentials so people can come in when they need to, if they need to upskill. And we'll see people getting skills that perhaps in the old days you did, well, these are all the business skills, so we'll do all of those. But I predict that we're going to see people who will come and they'll do a little bit of welding, and they'll do a little bit of business, and they might even do a little bit of community services. They'll put together their own package of skills and walk out the door and become quite employable. Again, for vocational careers that we haven't even really recognized exist yet.
Councillor Wong.
Yeah, first off, I'd like to thank you for coming. It's certainly an indication that the college considers Kirkland Lake an important component, and that's, I think, something the council is very pleased to see. Now, I'm not going to get into the education side of things. I'm a little bit more pragmatic. One of the problems that students at the Kirkland Lake campus have is housing, getting decent housing. Now, at your Timmins campus, you have a large residence. I think you expanded it in the recent years. I can't remember.
Not at Timmins, no.
Okay, but you have a large residence there. I know my daughter stayed in it for a year. Is the college consider any form of residence here to alleviate the problem? Because it's not easy for the students to find a decent place at an affordable price. And also with a large number of international students, you have many coming from a climate that's extremely different than Northern Ontario. If there were residences close to the actual campus, you might be able to attract more. Thank you.
So in answer to your question, are we considering? It's a discussion that has floated around a number of times, and it varies, the way the discussion goes varies very much on the current situation. I do know that there will be infrastructure dollars coming down as a response to COVID and stimulation. And if there would be a partnership with the city of Kirkland Lake and college, there might be some opportunities there to fund most colleges no longer fund their own residents. It's done through the private sector. There has to be a really strong case to invite them in. If there was infrastructure dollars that we could contribute, that would certainly help in doing that.
As you're aware, we have the Kirk Lake Community Campus Committee, was formed about a year ago. It's part of the Committee of Council, and we met with a number of your people. Been very, very cooperative.
Yeah.
I think what we're trying to do as a council and as a town is to kind of kickstart or restart the partnership of our community back with the college, because when we look back, most of us have been here a while. I'm sure there was at least 400 students, maybe 500. It brings a lot to the community. The international students that we have got, that have come up here, I must say, are quality people that have added to the culture and the lifestyle of Kirkland Lake. So we'd like to see more.
Yeah.
One of the things that the community college group would like to see is more of a working partnership group put together to work a little more directly with the college itself. And I'm wondering if that is possible.
It is possible. I actually thought we did have the working group, because I know I've met with Sean previously. We've had delegations. We haven't really heard anything in the last little while, and I assume that's because of COVID. I think a lot of things are on hold. But especially around marketing, recruiting, I think that is a fantastic partnership for us to be involved in. And I do want to say we do have to be realistic, though, around numbers. For example, the population decline in the last 10 years is similar to the decline in domestic enrollment at all of our campuses. So we are probably, and I tell this to people in Timmins as well, we are never going to get back to the 2,500 domestic enrollment that we had, because simply the students aren't there. We can certainly target and bring in more students, and we can certainly achieve a lot higher. And I think that's where we need to partner on the recruiting, the positive. I think it's really, really important that there be very positive messages within the community about the college, about the fact that we're here and how important it is. I will be quite honest, sometimes I get asked, are you thinking of closing the college? The only people that ask me that are people from this area. So I'm not sure, that kind of discussion doesn't help if that's at the community level. People are going to want to go to a place they know will stay open. So I think it's really, really important that we have those positive conversations. I'm certainly happy to follow up with Sean, and whatever we need to do on that partnership committee, we can get people in place. And I do know Drew has been active on that, as I believe Jeff has been. So you've got a board of directors and a campus manager already involved. So the conversations are already happening.
Well, we look forward to working with them. It may have been a declining population, but we're on the upswing.
Yep.
I don't have to tell you what's happening with KL Gold and Public Nico Eagle, some of the other mines. We do anticipate an increase in population, and the college certainly attracts families to move here if they come to work. So I don't think we're going to be on the decline. Will we ever reach that 29,000 back in 1940? It's like you said about.
Yeah, I think we just have to be realistic. I mean, we are on an upswing, and the same in the whole region. I mean, we're on a fantastic upswing. Northern Ontario is really poised to do some great things.
As mining is, I don't want to take up, I know Eugene, you had mentioned about the Common Core courses. Is that on in Timmins as well as in Kirkland Lake?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'm going to defer to David. David, Common Core?
Yes, here we offer the Diamond Driller Assistant Common Core program, and
Yeah.
the underground hard rock mining Common Core is available through Timmins right now.
well, we think we can do a great job right here in Kirkland. So we're looking for, we're hoping to see, you talked a lot, I don't want to hog all the time here from our fellow councilors. We talked about trades, and there's such a trade shortage in the province. And that's one of the biggest issues with the local employers, to get electricians, plumbers, carpenters. And we had the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, a virtual conference within the last couple of weeks. And that's one of the discussions that we had, is hopefully that the province is going to put more money back into apprenticeship programs and college courses available, because there's such a shortage that I think there's a great opportunity for small colleges like Kirkland Lake and Haliburton
So
to fill those needs.
just on that note, as you're well aware, we have to have a TDA, Trades Development Agreement to do that, and we have applied for more. That's at the discretion of the Ministry of Labor, Skills and Training Development, and we're still waiting to hear on those. I'm not going to list them all because it is a bit of a competitive process, so you kind of like to keep your cards close to your chest on what you're doing there. So we are applying. We do see that as tremendous opportunity, and we see the need there as well. One of the things that is also around that whole situation is apprenticeship reform, which is ongoing, and the ministry is running with that. We can have input into it, but we don't make the decisions on it. And then you have the College of Trades as well, which the ministry is dealing with directly, and that's a political issue that we don't have a lot to do with, but we are applying for additional TDAs where we can get them.
Well, that's great to hear, because there is a big
shortage.
Big gap there.
And promoting the trades is really, really important, and seeing trades as a really viable profession. That still has a long ways to come, so that people understand going into trades, it is a well-respected occupation. And, it takes a little while to get that message across.
Any other comments or questions from council members? Well, thank you, Dr. Penner.
Thank you.
I must say, it's nice to see.
I think I'm supposed to do this, right?
It's nice to have you here, and as I said, I think we're really working towards a partnership with the college, not just from the council members, but the town of Kirkland Lake itself.
And I was going to suggest that perhaps we could keep it on the radar as we come back in the spring with our annual report, so we can report back on some things that have happened and where things have gone. We recognize that municipal governments, like college governments, we're sometimes at the whim of what's happening externally in situations and with governmental policies. But I think we're all in this together, and the more we work together, the further we move the needle.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Folks can remain or exit as you see wish. Thanks again. We have a motion to receive the report from Northern College.
Yes, we do. And through your workshop, just to remind councilors, the survey for the strategic plan that she mentioned was sent out in weekly this week. So it should already be in your email, so we can recirculate as well. So the motion is moved by Casey Owen, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that the presentation by Northern College be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Another petition and delegation. Bernadette, what was that? Welcome, Bernadette.
Thank you, Bernadine. I I just wanted to appear to ask that my letter today be considered and my letter from my surveyor attached. And I just ask that as we delay the matter of in there, I ask that we delay the matter of the bylaw or the decision on whether to sell the land until my surveyor is able to contest a previous. And I also wanted to mention that I feel that that this matter should have been left private until at a point when the dispute between the two landowners had been settled.
With respect to that, the proposed purchaser has been waiting approximately, I think, close to a year. So it did have to move ahead at some point.
Yes, I
But
understand.
I realize there is, you do have some concerns. And I think we had a good conversation this afternoon with the CEO and the clerk and myself. And I can appreciate where you're coming from. I guess what we were trying to find out to some extent, what the Ontario Land Surveyor would be, have some kind of a report, an indication of where this is going over, a reasonable time frame.
Yeah, well, in his letter, he points out that he has some commitments that are kind of sensitive, I believe, but he will fill in or open a spot to dedicate to working on this investigation and as soon as possible. I mean, I've had to go to North Bay where that's a distance he has to travel to do it, the COVID, and I know he will in a timely manner. There's a lot of information that has to be gathered. It's at different levels and to ensure that he can contest the survey, the first survey that was done that I am contesting.
Do any of my fellow councillors have a question? Councillor Adams?
Yes, thank you very much, Bernadine, for coming forward with this. Certainly always do respect anybody willing to come before council. Council received these documents about 20 minutes before the meeting started, so I didn't even have time to review this. So I certainly feel for you that with your request, that is certainly be council have an opportunity to review in a timely manner and give you an opportunity, because 20 minutes before this meeting was not adequate for this. So hopefully other councillors agree with that on this item.
And I would also like to add that after I was notified that the town was going to try to bring a bylaw to council to sell this land, I was myself, my surveyor was unable to reach anyone at the works department all last week, and only out of desperation sent that letter to the town hall, and has not been able to speak to her about the investigation. So I just ask that some time be given, because due process is what's involved, because it could be a matter for the courts.
Councillor Owen?
Yeah, I concur with Councillor Adams, and the council just received the documentation at this council meeting. I want to explain a little bit about why this went public.
Yes.
There are certain steps under the Municipal Act that a town must follow if they put property up for sale. And I stand to be corrected by the CIO or our Director of Development if I've got this wrong, because it's not my area. But first, we have to declare the land surplus, which has to be done at a public meeting. Then, after we pass that bylaw saying that we have no use for the land, then we can sell. And so that's why everything goes public right away. And I can appreciate in your case where you might think, well, that's kind of like bringing neighborhood fights into the public,
Yeah.
but we really don't have a choice from it.
Okay.
As a counselor, I think it would be wrong to make a decision before all the information is in. That's my personal stance. I can't speak for the mayor and the other councilors. The other thing I can say is making a decision before all the information is in could end up with the town being involved in a court case, which is time consuming on the staff and expensive to the ratepayers.
Exactly.
So where I stand right now is that I will vote that it be deferred until all the pertinent information has been collected. As much as we'd like to deal with this as quickly as we can't order your, well, maybe we can, but I don't think it would be proper to order your surveyor to have it done by a certain date.
No,
But I would encourage you
yes,
to pressure your surveyor to get it done ASAP. And it'll also resolve the whole issue between neighbors.
I
It'd
agree.
be nice to have it resolved.
I agree, it would be, yes. The sooner the better, for sure. And I'll put a bug in his ear for sure and keep it there.
I agree with Councillor Owen and Councillor Adams that in this short notice of receiving the information, that this should be deferred and to staff to come back with a report and see what they can, what additional information they can get from the surveyor, especially in regards to the time frame of getting that survey completed. So if
I would,
fellow council members are in favor of that, do we need a motion?
Actually, I would just receive the application, and then if you want to do it as a resolution, but we should dispose of the application first.
Okay, we have a motion then to receive your report, and then we will make a decision as having staff review it and getting back.
okay.
So we have a motion.
So I have a motion moved by Eugene Ivanov, seconded by Rick Owen. Be it resolved that the delegation and documents provided by Bernadine Kozak be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you, Bernadine.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Item number 5, acceptance of minutes and recommendations.
So I have a motion moved by Dennis Perry, seconded by Stacy White. Be it resolved that council accept the minutes of the following meetings. Minutes of the special meeting of council held August 11th, 2020. Minutes of the regular meeting of council held August 11th, 2020. Minutes of the special meeting of council held August 25th, 2020. Minutes of the Committee of Management meeting held May 28th, 2020. And minutes of the Economic Committee meeting held August 26th, 2020.
Any questions, comments? All in favor? Motion carried. Reports of municipal officers and communications, item 6.1, COVID-19 update, CAO McGee.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to council, it will be a brief COVID-19 update this evening as Ms. Loach and Mr. Hawes are on a well-deserved vacation day today. My summary comments would be, as we enter a new stage of COVID-19 with children back to school, a lot of people entering back into the workforce, it is even more important now that we all exercise vigilance to ensure that we curb the spread of COVID-19. And as Your Worship and Council is seeing this evening, everybody is practicing very good physical distancing, wearing face coverings and masks when they can't physically distance. And I think the Premier's words were very appropriate today with respect to various regions throughout Ontario doing an extremely good job. And that's because everyone in those regions is recognizing that public gatherings cannot take place the way that they did in the past. Parties on a Saturday night of tens of hundreds of people are not good ideas. And I think those regions have recognized that and have been rewarded with 0 cases. So we want to continue that trend in Miskaming District and especially in Kirkland Lake, and recognize that we must all follow the practices in place by the province and the medical officer of health to ensure that we do reduce and eliminate the spread of COVID-19 in our regions. So with that, Your Worship, I'm going to ask Ms. Zach Ryder to provide us with a technical overview of the steps in place throughout the town of Kirkland Lake to curb the spread, and then Mr. Gorman will sum up with the financials.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. The town of Kirkland Lake's facilities continue to evolve their opening plans as time goes on. The adult department of the Tech Centennial Library will reopen to the public on September 15th with their pre-COVID hours. The children's department will remain closed at this time. The slide at the community complex pool is now open to the public at all open swims. Change rooms at the pool with restricted numbers are now open. Additional swim times have been scheduled throughout the week. Virtual recreational programming will take the place of in-person programming when possible. Information from the various levels of health continue to be used at staff meetings and at health and safety meetings to ensure our staff are informed and up to date with protocols and best practices. As children return to school this week and interactions increase, we encourage everyone to continue to practice physical distancing, mask wearing, and hand washing, as well as a really important one, getting agreement from those in their social circle that they're only joining one social circle and that you will distance with anyone from outside that circle. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Gorman.
Thank you, Ms. Sackler. In regards to COVID-19, the pandemic pay, which was previously announced, ended effective August 13th. On the TPR side of things, we'll be preparing our final payouts. We'll be reviewing hours with the final reconciliation in June, September 25th. Mid-August, just after our last council meeting, the province provided additional details on the Safe Restart Agreement, which was the $4 billion package that had been announced to Ontario's 444 municipalities. And the program is essentially 2 phases, in which phase 1, all municipalities received some level of funding on a per capita basis, and then phase 2 will effectively be based on those who need additional funding. Our phase 1 funding has been, we received indication as to what we will receive. Kirkland Lake is on the docket to receive $567,000. It should be received later this month. In regards to the second phase, It'll be on an as-needed basis, and effectively we'll have to summarize our impact and estimates of COVID through Q3 of this year. And then at that point, determine if we need to get additional funding and submit an application as such. So we'll be looking to table basically a report to potentially get a resolution on October 20th in regards to that.
Thank you, Your Worship. That concludes the staff update on COVID-19. We're happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Yes. In discussions with a couple of business people in town, they are wondering if any of this 566,600 can be used towards assisting businesses in startup again, or is it strictly to replace the lost revenues that the municipality would normally collect? Is there any room to do anything like that for a portion?
In regards to the 567, it specifically looks like it's towards municipalities. So the intent is to offset those lost revenues and basically bridge them through those tough times that we've seen. We get the finer details of it in the areas of spend. I mean, we've been looking to see if there's options for that. But I think for all intents and purposes, the intent is to help offset those transit revenues, recreation revenues, and those types of things, along with the additional expenditures that we've seen across the board, whether they be PPE, plexiglass for facilities, and that kind of thing.
And on that note, Your Worship, there's a plethora of various federal provincial programs to assist business, and we're trying to funnel those through the Chamber of Commerce as the business mechanism to best get that information out to local businesses in the town of Kirkland Lake to assist them with any funding opportunities that may exist.
Yeah, I realized this was going to be a difficult one to answer because if there are funds left over in 2020, the municipality is required to use that to carry over into 2021, if that is not correct. So we couldn't go ahead and spend all this money and dish it out.
The hard part now is we're going to have to estimate what impact would be needed for 2021. So effectively, if there are dollars left over, it'll go into the reserve at the end of the year, and then we could use them to potentially offset some of the lost revenues that we anticipate next year, or additional expenditures and that we can sort of foresee, through 2021 as well. So we'll just have to be very mindful. It's one thing to understand what we think we've lost today, but it's another thing to try to predict what it'll be towards the future as well. So.
And with respect to that, Your Worship, so this is phase one of the program, and maybe Mr. Gorman can expand on phase two. But phase two would look at additional expenses over and above the initial 567 that the town would also be eligible for. So this is a continuum total that we will be eligible to split costs going into the future. Mr. Gorman, is that your understanding?
Yes, so that's my understanding. So basically, phase two will be applied for towards the end of the year. So you do need to identify that. When we did our 2020 budgeting process, we had estimated the net impact of the $300,000 to the municipality, and that's, we expected to lose about $400,425 on the revenue side, but we recognized that there were some expenditures that we didn't have in there. So we did figure the net impact to be about $375. As the year progresses, we'll get a little more confidence on that number. So, we'll look at the first phase, which is phase one. The report is basically up to September 30th. It'll involve a lot of legwork, particularly on the recreation side, to really understand those lost revenues, sort of the impact that we've just seen, and then we were moving into our 2021 budget deliberations, and so staff will be meeting to compare those, at which point we'll have to try to sort of land what we think for 2021, which will naturally help us identify that potential need for next year as well.
Thank you for clarifying that, Councillor Adams.
I'd be interested if you were able to use some of that money to boost up our community improvement plan. If it's lots of revenue, we have businesses that are closing, they're not contributing as much. If we were to provide the opportunity for them to use some of the more funds available, just to see if that's an option.
Possibly we can follow that up then with our low-cost economic and development officer, and I'll get back to you. I agree it would be a nice touch if we could. Any other comments or questions? Thank you. And I have a motion to accept the report.
A motion moved by Stacy White, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that the verbal update titled COVID-19 update be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.2, corporate policy manual update. Clerk Megan Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to council. Staff are excited to present this to you today to show that we are working on streamlining our policies. Throughout the years, it seems that there has been different templates, different versions of the same policies, and we wanted to just make sure we had a solid manual to refer to. So we have implemented a new template, policy numbers, streamlined the departments, and this is our result. So today, we are looking to pass attachment 1 is the full list of the current policy manual, and all else would be considered repealed. Questions?
Councilor Adams.
Yes, I would just recommend that the policy on health and safety representative not be a part of this. A section 8 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act defines a representative for a workplace of 5 but less than 20. And since we have more than that, I don't think this policy reflects what we have. We have a health and safety committee policy as well, which is for 20 or more people. So why would we need a health and safety representative policy when we have a joint health and safety committee with more employees than 20?
So there are a number of policies that we are looking at updating, changing, and that sort of nature. Today, what's being presented is just what's currently in place because we didn't want to change anything at the moment. If there is, the ones that you're noting, is there a policy number associated with it I could look at?
I did not write that one down, but if we're to decide which ones are not to be a part of it, we weren't able to evaluate the ones that are to be removed to read their content.
Councilor White.
Sorry. So that is also my concern. With the way the motion is written, the blanket statement that all other policies not contained within attachment 1 to this report are hereby repealed. I have a staff, because I've been working on this with staff for a year and a half. I was afforded the opportunity to be handed an entire policy manual last year sometime. And this is my staff of what's missing, including advertising policies. And so my concern is that even though the list is great, it has a lot of work put into it, there is a lot of policies that will be blanket repealing with no discussion. There's some that I don't understand why we're repealing them, like the election policies. So I'd like to see a discussion and a review of those policies before we just take them off the list in a blanket fashion. Some of the policies that are missing on the list include our procurement policy and our procedures of council. I know they're being worked on, but does that leave us in a situation where we don't have a procurement policy and we don't have procedures of council policy?
Through you, Your Worship, to council. So 9 out of, or 90% of the items on the list, if they're not there or on the repeal list, it's because they're covered elsewhere. So for instance, the procurement policy is covered by a purchasing bylaw currently. So that is okay for there. Procedures of council is covered in our procedural bylaw. So trying to just eliminate that. And then a lot of instances in the election is addressed through the clerk's like policy procedure of elections or the act. So pretty much anything is covered elsewhere. Staff met multiple times all together with department heads going through each listing. And then pretty much, yes, it just, most things are covered elsewhere or are not relevant anymore.
Okay. And then my second follow-up question to that is, on the list of repealed policies, they all have in the column as presented on attachment 2, it says their repeal date is September 2020. But a lot of those on the list have been repealed previously. So will the date reflect today or when they were originally repealed?
Through your worship to council, that is my mistake. I just put them all as September for now. The second attachment is more just for reference. It's not associated with the motion per se. It's just everything based on attachment 1.
So those repeal dates will be fixed in public record or whatever?
Mr. McGee?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Through you, Your Worship, to council. So what happened is staff looked at all the current policies within the organization. So all of the policies listed in attachment 1 are in force and effect right now. What the clerk is recommending is that council say, yes, we agree that they're in force and effect, and we're going to approve them as presented to be in force and effect. One of the concerns and one of the reasons we do a repeal of a policy or a bylaw is to ensure there's nothing out there that would catch the corporation off guard. So for instance, the town of Kirkland Lake has had a bit of a practice of amending bylaws, and I'll use the parking bylaw as an example, where you get to the point where there's been so many amendments, if it's not consolidated on a regular basis, there's an opportunity for exclusions, confusions to occur. So that's really what the clerk is attempting to do here, is to clarify the policy manual that is in force and effect, and if council agrees with what's presented and approves it, then that will be the policy manual for the town of Kirkland Lake. And then we go forward with that baseline to say we're going to build, add, delete, revise the policies that are listed within that document, and any legislative requirement that requires a policy to be confirmed by its own bylaw, like the procedural bylaw, the procurement, the urban canopy, we'll do that separately. But ideally, the policy manual is that document that we'll be able to manage, maintain, and have available for everybody anytime. Because one of my concerns right now is when I'm asking staff to comply with the policies in place, we're honestly not sure that there isn't something else out there that has more prominence than the policy that we may be holding in our hand. So this sets the baseline, and that's what council's being asked to do. If council doesn't want to do it at this meeting, that's perfectly fine. Defer it to the next meeting, bring forward, clear directions as to what you would like staff to do, and we can bring it back to the next meeting. But I don't think that you're being asked to do anything that already isn't in force and effect. This is just the beginning point for a continual review of the ongoing policy manual. I hope that helps, Madam Clerk and Your Worship.
Councillor Owens.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with the first part of the bylaw where we're just approving the new format of the policies. It's in what we're repealing. I would just like to do more information, like a number, something that I can Google. Like if I look at the first one, temporary hiring freeze. Well, I know it was on the agenda last year, but I got ambushed at council a few minutes before a meeting, and I pulled my motion back. So if this is the same one, it was never actually debated. So I would just like to have a reference point as to what exactly we're repealing on this. And there's a few of them that come along in there. I'd like to have information before we just say, yeah, okay, it's on.
Councillor Adams?
Yep, I agree with Councillor White and Councillor Owen that we defer this one and have an opportunity to review the policies that are being requested to be no longer part of it. And the health and safety representative policy would be number 33. As we don't have a workforce less than 20, we don't need that policy to be a part of it. Thank you.
Councillor Owens?
It doesn't need to be a full-on 600 pages of documents like the policies that are still in, that we're approving that are enforced right now. I just want to see like a number next to it. And I'll do the search myself, what I need to know. Like it doesn't need to be time consuming here, just a policy number to reference to.
You feel that's a reasonable request?
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, just making the amendment based on what I'm hearing. I do have Councillor Ivanov is the mover and Councillor Owen is the seconder. And I will read the amended motion to see if the mover and seconder are on board. So moved by Eugene Ivanov, seconded by Rick Owen. Be it resolved that report number 2020-CLK-004 entitled Corporate Policy Manual be received. That report 2020-CLK-004 be referred back to staff to include reasons for repealing those not on the list, or those on the list. And that policy HS 2020-033 be repealed, or be moved to the repealed list.
Any further comments? Councillor Owen?
Yeah, Councillor Owens asked that a reference number be included. Would that also be included in the motion? So it makes it easier for us to research it.
And sorry, can I clarify reference numbers of old policies?
What's being
I defer to Councillor Owens, he's the one that's familiar
Yeah,
with the numbers.
just of what we're asking to repeal, like there's no numbers, there's nothing like, some of them are pretty self-explanatory, like 100th anniversary Canadian Clear, it's over bank. But some of them like job postings, civil marriage policies, like what are we repealing? There's no way to go have a look at it. I just, before I say no, I'd like to do my due diligence and just make sure that there's nothing, like we're here to oversee, right? To make sure that everything is done, that there's nothing that we're missing. I'd just like to go have a look. So like there's, I'm assuming these policies have numbers associated to them.
In the past, they did not.
So there's no way to,
I can include them as attachments if you wish for the update.
well, whatever's easiest, I guess.
Councillor White?
Yeah, I can understand why Casey, Councillor Owens would have concerns because some of them policies listed have two. So we're saying yes to a code of conduct and no to a code of conduct. We're saying yes to an overtime and no to an overtime because there's several versions listed. So on the repeal list, there's an overtime. On the keep list, there's an overtime. So I can understand how confusing it may appear because we weren't provided with the ones we weren't repealing. And you plainly see if you have those two policies before you, one was old, like 85 old, and one was new. So I can understand that.
Okay, so through you, your worship council, the mover, Eugene Ivanoff, is there something that you want to add based on those comments?
No, it actually, I would trust that you've gone through all these policies, and I don't have an issue with accepting the current list. I don't have to go through every whole policy to figure out that we've got a, you know, I mean, if that's the detail that other councillors want, then that's just, you can make the motion and I'll agree to it.
So Councillor Ivanoff, as the mover, would you like to put it to vote as the motion as is, and then have a different motion proposed depending on that outcome, or are you on board for amending the motion?
Or you can amend the motion. I don't think it's gonna pass the current motion won't pass.
So if I include wording to say repeal, refer back to staff to include reasons for repealing those on the list, and to provide the policy as an attachment for review.
Sure, that's fine.
So motion moved by Eugene Ivanoff, seconded by Rick Owen. Be it resolved that report number 2020-CLK-004 entitled Corporate Policy Manual be received. That report number 2020-CLK-004 be referred back to staff to include reasons for repealing those on the list and to provide the policy as an attachment for review. And that policy HS 2020-033 be moved to the repealed list.
No further comments or questions? All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.3, request to purchase land. Somerset Drive. Mr. Woodall.
Thank you, Worship. Through your council, we received a request to purchase land off the 4 Somerset Drive. It is a small 20-foot wide piece of property that needs to be added to the abutting property owner to the south. We did look at potentially selling a larger piece for purpose of development, but unfortunately due to servicing constraints, we don't think that it would be financially capable of being expanded on along that stretch. So this is probably our best ability to sell some land in that area. So the purchase price, the survey has been completed, and the purchase price is $2,000. I'm here to answer any questions council may have regarding this plan.
Councilor Owen.
I have a question for the Director of Development. Is that at our new price or our old price?
So,
We discussed upping the price that we're selling surplus land for.
so this would be an equal price.
Equal price to what? Old price?
Yeah.
Why are we not selling at the new price?
Okay. Through your worship to council, this was presented originally at an internal meeting prior to us discussing the appraisal process and the new prices. So when we originally discussed the purchase price, and this is something that council can change if they would like, we had set the price at $2,000.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thanks for the background. I just wanted to make sure that going forward, that we're charging the new price to everyone. But this originated prior to the new price, so yeah, that's good. Thank you.
And just to confirm, we will be reviewing our land sale policy and our procedures with that, and that will reflect the new price moving forward as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions, concerns? We have a motion.
I have a motion moved by Stacy White, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that report number 2020-Dev-041 entitled Request to Purchase Land North of 4 Somerset Drive be received. That council declare the property surplus to the needs of the municipality and authorize the corporation of the town of Kirkland Lake to enter into an agreement of purchase and sale to sell the land to the north of 4 Somerset Drive to Mark Bronson for a sale price of $2,000, and that staff be directed to present a bylaw to deem Lot 1, Plan M-218, not to be on a plan of subdivision to merge the two properties on title.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item 6.4, request to purchase land east at 28 Dixon.
Thank you, Worship. Through your council, this is a request from the owners of 26 Dixon Avenue to purchase a small grass area beside their home. They've been maintaining it for well over 20 years, and they're interested in owning that portion of land. So the property itself involves Spruce Street road lines, which have been declared surplus quite some time ago. I think the original purchase of a portion of Spruce Street happened in 1988. And more recently, they acquired additional land in 2014, that would be the owners on the eastern portion of that road line, to purchase the driveway that was accessed off of the Spruce Street road line. So at this point, there's just a small chunk of land that the owner would like ownership of. This process was started approximately a year and 2 months ago. We did receive the survey, and we have been in communication with the surrounding neighbors to allow them the opportunity to comment on the land sale. That was the individual that was delegating to you tonight is one of those neighboring property owners. The original concern that she raised with us was that the property lines in general throughout that area, she's not necessarily in agreement of. So it's not necessarily the survey itself that was done just for this land sale, it's the lines in general throughout that subdivision that she's contesting. So this sale has been delayed for over a year, and to attempt to resolve the matter, there has been ongoing delays. We have had a pandemic, that's a major one. We had a lot of the issues with trying to travel between districts. I have been in communication with the surveyor. I tried contacting him twice in July, once in July, once in August. And more recently, I did talk to him today, just to get an understanding of what type of timeline we're looking at in case they did want to proceed, or council did want to proceed with providing a delay for more information to come forward. So he did say that the information could likely be provided to the neighbor by the end of October. So I suggested a 60-day delay, and he did say that he'd be willing to work within that time. So if council is looking at delaying this matter, we can certainly look at delaying it for a couple months. My only suggestion would be to impose a deadline so that we don't hold back or impose further delay on the purchaser who is anxiously trying to finalize the land sale. Are there any questions in regards to this one?
Councilor Owens?
I agree with Ashley on this one, that, yeah, we should probably delay this one, but there needs to be a timeline. This has been delayed enough, and yes, there's a pandemic, but there's also ample opportunity to be able to have this completed, and it's not fair to the buyer to delay, like, till whenever the, Kozak is willing to just hold it or to have this resolved.
Any other comments? In our discussion today, it appears it's not so much, it's part of the whole description of that property and next to it, so it's not, I think we should have a pretty good indication from the surveyor within that time frame that you're suggesting, because maybe a further survey is not required. So I think this is a reasonable recommendation to accommodate this lady's request, plus for the ownership to change hands if everything is in order. So, any other discussion? We have a motion.
Through your worship to council. On this motion, the mover is Councillor Owen and the seconder is Councillor Perrier. Are you okay with the amendment as well as, is there a timeline you would like to?
I'm okay with both.
Your worship, did I hear a timeline or? 60?
Through your worship, yeah, 60 days is what I suggested to the surveyor. He had mentioned the end of October.
So the amended motion reads as moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Dennis Perrier. Be it resolved that report number 2020-dev-040 entitled Request to Purchase Land East of 26 Dixon Avenue be received, and that the sale of land be deferred until Ms. Kozak can provide a survey within 60 days. Mr. McGee, am I missing anything for details on that?
I would suggest, your worship, that it should probably be a referral back to staff, and that staff present the report to council at the first meeting in November, which would be past the 60-day mark, I believe, with any supplementary information relating to the survey. I think that covers the issues at hand, if that's acceptable, your worship.
Okay, so I'll say that the report be referred back to staff to the, should I say, the first meeting of November?
Councillor Owen?
Okay, now I am confused. And that doesn't take much. So we're giving the surveyor 60 days, right? And then staff is going to report back to council in the first meeting in November, right? That's what the motion is saying. I'm agreeable to that.
No, there's nothing to say that we could report back earlier than that if we have all the information. Is that a fair? Okay, do you want to reread that motion just?
Yes. So moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Dennis Perrier. Be it resolved that report number 2020-dev-040 entitled Request to Purchase Land East of 26 Dixon be received, and that report number 2020-dev-040 be referred back to staff. Just that. Refer back to staff for the first meeting of November to allow Ms. Kozak to provide any additional documents. Just a moment, I don't have a specific day in there.
First meeting of council in November. That's a good time.
Okay.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.5, community development involvement improvement plan, application recommendations. Ashley Yellowdale.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to council, Mr. Haas is going on vacation, so we're going to, me and Ms. Elliott are actually going to take this report for and present it for him. I am very familiar with the CIP process, and Ms. Elliott was at the Economic Development Committee meeting to shed any light on that meeting itself. So we did receive 2 requests. Sorry. We did receive 2 requests to council for funding at the with the CIP program. So there was the facade improvement funding requested, building renovations, the studies was asking for some reimbursement. That was for Mr. Bronson building down Government Road. There's also some building renovation and rebate money and landfill fees to be made at the LaSalle Theater. So at the Economic Development Committee meeting, they were amenable to providing for council to provide money in relation to the building renovation improvement grant and the facade improvement grant for Mr. Bronson. They were not in favor of providing money for the design, architectural, and project feasibility study grant, and the main reason was because that was something that was already completed. So instead of going and backtracking, we are looking at moving forward. With Mr. Rowley's request for the LaSalle Theater, there was the request for council to consider that they're favorably recommending the building renovation improvement grant and the rebate on landfill fees. So there is a little bit of funding there. There's about $7,500 from Mr. Bronson and $6,000 for the LaSalle Theater. That is up for consideration in council's next meeting. Are there any questions?
Councilor Owen?
I think he answered it, but this is for work that's going to be done, not work that has already been done, right?
Through your worship, to council, the way that we looked at it and the way we recommended to the Economic Development Committee was exactly that. At the Economic Development Committee meeting, they agreed with us. Certainly, there is the opportunity if council wishes to fund if they wish. The program was put into place in June of 2019. No budget was supplied at that time, so we threw money in the 2020 budget for this program. So that is up to council on what they want to do. We were concerned as staff that there were 2 or 3 people that did want to take advantage back in 2018 that have now gone and done work. Would they now come back to council for retroactive payment of those renovations?
Councilor Owen?
Yeah, just as a follow-up, I'm all in favor of giving it for work to be done. Even though we had nothing in the budget, they still could have applied to council in 2019 if they had wanted money at that time period. And I think it's important that we, as a council, don't set a precedent going backwards. Is there any requirement in receiving this money that we actually see some form of proof, invoices or whatever for the work, where the money was spent?
Through your worship, council, the money will actually not be provided to them until work is completed.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Wright?
So in the report, it says the initial 50,000. We had also added additional fees for the year. Sorry, Mr. Gorman, do you know those figures offhand?
Through your worship, I'll talk first and let Mr. Gorman jump in. It's something that I noted when I looked at the report on my way here, and I actually made the same suggestion, but I do believe there's more. There's carryover from from stuff that was put aside, brought in, and then there was the 50,000 allocated this year. So I think it's around. Yeah, the hardest to know everything yet. Did you want to check? Okay. We believe it's about 70,000, but we'll firm up the number and get back to council on that one. It was more than 50, I believe.
Thank you. Any concerns or further questions? We have a motion to approve as presented.
The motion moved by Stacy White, seconded by Eugene Ivanoff. Be it resolved that memorandum number 2020-dev-006 entitled Community Improvement Plan Application Recommendations Economic Development Committee be received. That council approve $5,000 for building renovations and $2,500 for facade improvements for the application submitted by Dr. Mark Bronson for 29 Government Road West. And that council approve $5,000 for building renovations and rebate $1,000 for landfill fees for the application submitted by Michael Raleigh for 98B Government Road West.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item number 7, consideration of notices of motion, none noted. Item 8, introduction, reading, and consideration of bylaws. With the motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, there's a few bylaws to pass. I'm just looking for the bylaw related to the sale of 26 Dixon, as we have noted that that will be deferred. so the first one, motion moved by Dennis Perry, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 20-070, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute documents related to a site plan control agreement at 11 Station Road South with Beth and Kevin Prima.
All in favor? Motion carried. Question, item number 8, questions from council to staff.
Sorry, your worship, just a couple more bylaws.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so a motion moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Eugene Ivanov. Be it resolved that bylaw number 20-072, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute documents related to the sale of Part 1, 54R-6159, a property located adjacent to 26 Dixon Avenue, to Theodore and Brenda Bukowski, be deferred.
All in favor? Motion carried.
We have a motion moved by Patrick Adams, seconded by Dennis Perrier. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 20-074, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement with DSP Consulting Engineers Inc. for the supply and installation of monitoring wells at the Kirkland Lake landfill site.
All in favor? Motion carried. That's it. Item number 9, questions from council to staff. 9.1, protesters. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak on behalf of that, please?
Just wondering about, do you have any bylaws that would allow people to protest? I know we have a process where the anti-abortion group comes forward to request. We said it's allowed the process for the clerk to allow that. So if we have individuals that just come onto our streets and hold up signs and don't secure them and become a traffic threat, is there anything that's possible to have in place?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to council. So the town does not have any legislative requirements in place for protesting, public assemblies, any other type of requirement like that. And if you go to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Constitution of Canada, it's right of every individual in this country to peacefully protest. And based upon that, staff wouldn't recommend that council attempt to try to govern this as it's already provided for through the Constitution and through federal and provincial legislation for the way that people are expected to conduct themselves when protesting in public. Thank you.
I would agree with Mr. McGee, but I do think the one point, whether they're blocking traffic, causing potential safety issues should be addressed. And when Councillor Owen and I meet with the new commanding officer of the Police Services Board later this month, I'm going to give him a heads up beforehand to see if there is any law that covers something like that. I think that was part of the issue, Councillor Adams. I do have to agree with you on that. But I do see it'd be pretty hard to put a bylaw on first to stop people from protesting it specifically. Councillor Adams.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm not concerned about any of that, nor about the public safety and why so the anti-abortion group at that point has no reason to come before council or request at that point. We'll make that clear to them as well.
Councillor Owens?
Councillor Owens first.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Owens.
I know firsthand that there is a law that covers the situation where someone is impeding traffic. It's obstruction of traffic law. I know full well because many, many years ago, I got charged with it and found guilty. I won't go into the circumstances, but nonetheless. As for the anti-abortion group, I believe they do that more as a courtesy and to be on the up and up with the town. I can't remember from my days of reporting whether they come and actually ask for a parade permit. But certainly, I would not want to, whether I agree or disagree with anyone, do anything that would limit someone's freedom to speak. My father served in World War II, and he served to preserve the very nature of the Canadian society that we enjoy today. And I would not want to see council move, no matter how outrageous or obnoxious the person may be, to limit their ability to present their views. This is not the first time that something like this has happened. I remember many years ago when a house collapsed into the pond, or whatever we want to call it, in Chappie Hughes for many weeks. The owner of that house sat up in front of the insurance broker's place with signs all over their cars, and you know, they weren't causing any problems. It was peaceful. I saw the most recent protester. I only drove by him a couple of times. When I drove by, there was no obstruction of traffic or anything that I saw, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. But the police do have the means to charge the person if they are obstructing traffic, and I know that.
Thank you, Councillor Owens.
I think the point's been made here. It's a charter issue. He's got the right to protest. It's a non-issue.
But I think we can follow up with police services work just to make sure. But there's nothing that council can do stopping protests.
Through you, your worship, to council, the mover is Councillor Adams and the seconder is Councillor Ivanov. Are you both in agreement to amend the motion to refer to the police service board?
Yes.
So motion moved by Patrick Adams, seconded by Eugene Ivanov. Be it resolved that the question from Councillor Adams titled "Protesters" be received, and that the question be referred to the September 2020 Police Services Board meeting.
All in favor? Motion carried. Notice of motions? None declared. Item 11, councillors' reports. Item 11.1. Councillor Adams, do you wish to speak on that behalf?
Yeah, I had reached out to the fitness program facilities within the community before I made this report. Since then, they have been reached out to and have been communicated with, so I'm happy that this has been followed through with.
So there's no motion required other than to accept your report, is that correct?
Sure.
Okay, so Councillor Adams is the mover, the seconder is Councillor Owen. Just to make sure we are in agreement to amend to remove the second section to direct staff. Okay, so motion moved by Patrick Adams, seconded by Rick Owen. Be it resolved that memorandum number 2020-CNL-004 entitled "Ensuring that administrative policies, practices, and procedures and controllership policies, practices, and procedures are in place to implement the decisions of council" be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 11.2, councillor updates. Councillor White?
Just like it noted that this week the Tech Centennial Library, Public Library Board has been made aware that we are in need of yet another member. So if anybody in the community would like to join and have a taste of what it's like to sit on the board, definitely I would appreciate another member on the library board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Owen?
Yes, I attended the town's hazardous waste program, and I'd like to report that it was very well used. I'd also like to thank the staff that were there. A number of them were there volunteering their time, and I think that needs to be noted at a public meeting. Because if a ratepayer went through there and started counting the number of staff that they saw on site, I'm sure they'd have a different opinion of the event. But going forward, we're not exactly sure what's going to happen with recycling. But should it stay the same as what it is now, I think that it's definitely a well worth the service that we provide. In larger communities, they have facilities right at their landfill sites, and people have easy access. But in smaller communities like us, it kind of piles up in our basements or driveways or garages. And it's something that is needed in small communities. And again, I just want to commend the staff. They were all laughing. I don't know if they were laughing at my mask or whatever, or the fact that I couldn't figure out how to unlock my tailgate, but it was very well attended and well used. Thank you.
Councillor Perry?
I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Bonnie and their staff, workers at the rec department for the excellent job they did on the fire and spark this summer. We got our lights up in the park now, so you go through there at night, you can see the tracks that have been put up. And I got some volunteers to take the chain for me. And they're gonna get the lighthouse next, so. That's what I've seen it in years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's a motion.
So we have a motion moved by Eugene Ivanoff, second by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that the verbal updates from members of council be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item number 12, 12.1. COVID-19 funding correspondence. Well, Steve Clark didn't make it, so.
Through you, your worship, to council, we are bringing this forth on the council agenda as per correspondence from the minister, as it was it was noted directly to us, so we wanted to present it in a formal meeting.
Okay, motion to accept the correspondence.
Motion moved by Rick Olin, seconded by Stacy White. Be it resolved that the correspondence from Minister Steve Clark regarding COVID-19 funding be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item number 13, moving into closed session.